Today on the show, has the government found a way to ruin the financial upside of legalized marijuana? Why? Of course they have.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So I forgot to tell you, I went to my first gay wedding this past weekend just gone by. And, you know, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was like, hey, did you talk about going away on your show? Whenever you travel, you always talk about traveling. I like it. Do you talk about traveling? Should I listen to the podcast? I'm like, yeah, go ahead and listen to the podcast. I talked about traveling. And he was like, did you talk about going to your first gay wedding? I was like, no. And he's like, did you talk about the fact that it was a gay wedding? I was like, I did not. And he was like, you didn't think it was worth bringing up? And I realized that I didn't bring it up because it was a complete non-event. It was a beautiful, amazing wedding. It was filled with friends and family that came from all over the world to celebrate the love of two people. And I guess it didn't, as it shouldn't, even register with me that the people getting married were gay, and that this was my first gay wedding. And then I stopped and I thought about it. And bear in mind, the friend that asked me is in no way, shape, or form prejudiced. But he was like, hey, it's a first. Wouldn't you want to talk about it? I was like, why don't you get a radio show and you talk about it and I'll listen to it instead? And he was like, touche. But my friend is in no way, shape, or form prejudiced. But it was interesting to him. He wanted to know what it was like. He'd never been to a gay wedding before. And I was like, it's like the fact that it was gay, like I said, didn't even register. And the fact that my completely non-prejudiced friend would ask me this question stopped and made me think about the fact that it was a gay wedding. And what it made me think about this particular gay wedding and gay weddings in general is that I cannot fathom in any way, shape, or form that somehow this is an issue to anyone. It was beyond me when I stopped and thought about it and thought that somewhere, someone, hundreds, maybe even thousands of miles away, but in this country, or in America rather, is doing their very best to get this changed. There's people who are anti-gay marriage. I mean, it's over and done with. It's here, it's a thing, the end. That's a genie you cannot put back in the bottle. You can deny people rights and freedoms for an awfully long time, and they'll kind of put up with it. But once they've experienced that right, once they've experienced that freedom, then it absolutely ends. They will not go back. And if you try and make them go back, if you try and take away that freedom, you'll have a bloody revolution on your hands. It's sort of like the healthcare thing. There's people in England that want to take away socialized medicine. But socialized medicine is a right. Healthcare is a right to a lot of people all over the world. Here, people are starting to debate that. Some people say it's something you pay for. Other people say it's a right. Other people say, why are my taxes going to pay for his poor dietary habits? And there's a whole bunch of interesting myriad arguments for and against. But the bottom line is, if you went to England and said, yeah, we're going to do it like America, not everyone is going to get health care. Not everyone will be able to get pharmaceuticals when they get sick. Not everyone will be able to go to a doctor for a checkup only the people with insurance, you'd have, like I said, a bloody revolution on your hands. But the fact that I was there at an event that had nothing to do with anybody but these two people who decided they loved each other and wanted to spend the rest of their life together, and their families who came to celebrate them and celebrate their lifelong commitment to one another. These were the only people that were affected by what happened that day. End of story. And I stopped and I thought about it. I was like, somewhere in America, there are people fighting to try and get this to not happen. Fighting, angry, hurt, upset, thinking we're all going to hell, or whatever the case may be, because these two people had a party in which they celebrated their legal and lifelong union. And I suppose that's what I really took away from my first gay wedding. It wasn't an issue. I didn't think that it would be an issue. I didn't think that it would be anything other than a wedding, like many other weddings that I'd been to before. And you know what? It was. But when my friend stopped, and when my friend asked me about it, it for the first time dawned on me that I'd been to a gay wedding, and my takeaway from that was, it is unbelievable that there is somebody out there who's never met these people, doesn't know their family, and is currently fighting to have things like this not happen, to have the legal right taken away. They don't even know this is happening. They can't see it. They don't know exactly what's going on. They know gay people are getting married and they're not okay with it, but they're not here. They don't know. This doesn't affect them in any way, shape, or form, and they are fighting against it. What a colossal waste of time and energy. What absolute freaking insanity that there could be someone devoting effort to stopping this from happening. And it blew my mind. But you know what? I've said it before. I've said it again. If for some reason you have a problem with the concept of gay marriage or the idea of gay marriage or gay marriage in general, there's a very easy solution to it for you. If you don't like gay marriage, well, don't marry a gay person. End of story. Problem solved. You're welcome again.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So, did you ever steal a road sign? I did not, but I wanted to. I remember going into my friend's place once when I was probably about 10, 12 years old. And we went into his older brother's room, and his older brother had a road sign. I was like, that's so cool. Where did he get it? And he was like, oh man, he stole it one night. I was like, that's cool. And then I was aware that other people had stolen road signs, and I too wanted to be cool and steal road signs. And then I think I might have mentioned it to my dad, who was, growing up, my dad was very open about his adolescent and young adulthood shenanigans. I think my parents decided they were just going to be completely open about all that stuff and cop to all the questionable things that they did when they were youths, in the hopes that maybe when I decided I wanted to do questionable things, I would come to them and talk about them, which in some cases I did, in some cases I did not. But I remember talking to my father about it, and he was like, don't do that. There's been a few clear no's that my dad gave me growing up. My parents were, I think, very into letting me find my own way, giving me enough rope, throwing me into the deep end so I could learn how to swim, whatever metaphor you want to apply to it. My parents kind of let me figure out how to make my way in the world. Sometimes I felt like I might have had a little bit too much freedom. I think about some of the things that I got up to, some of the situations I found myself in at a young age. And I think I would have maybe done things differently if I were them. But you know what? They gave me a lot of freedom, and I benefited from that. I'll never forget, actually. This has nothing to do with anything. But I spent the night on JFK Airport floor once when I was probably in about the 8th grade. I was living in England. My parents decided I would fly to America and visit some friends and family and reconnect with folks. And, well, it was an interesting little life lesson when this happened, because I'll never forget flying in late to JFK Airport. And flying in late to JFK Airport on the verge of missing my connecting flight, and coming in through customs behind a plane from Jamaica. Now, people that were coming in from Jamaica, well, there was a certain eye of suspicion toward them by the customs agents, rather. And you know what? Some of these suspicious eyes being put on the plane load full of people from Jamaica were very well placed, because, man, I'll never forget. So many folks, I guess, oblivious to rules with bringing agricultural produce in and out of countries, had tried to bring mangoes in. Yeah, there were all these, I'll never forget, standing in line behind this plane load full of people from Jamaica that were having their mangoes confiscated, which sounds dirty, but it's not. Hey, baby, want to confiscate my mangoes? Don't know what that means, but sounds filthy. Anyways, because I was already late, and because I came into America behind a plane load of people from Jamaica that were having their mangoes confiscated, I missed my connecting flight on to Texas to go to hang out with my buddy Billy, who to this day is still my best friend. But there was another flight at like 5 the next morning, something like that, and it was already very late. So I had about 3-4 hours to kill at JFK Airport. And I was flying as an unaccompanied minor, and there's supposed to be somebody by your side at all times. And there wasn't. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know how I got through. Well, no, hold on. If I was 16, I wasn't an unaccompanied minor, I don't think. Anyways, there was no one watching me. And I was like, what do? Do I take them up on their offer of a hotel and find myself in a hotel room in New York City? Or do I just hang out in the airport for a few hours and wait for the next plane at 5 a.m.? Well, I'm going with a hangout in the airport for a few hours option. That's what I will be doing. And I notice a bunch of road-weary businessmen who have clearly been in this situation numerous times before lie down and use their jackets and briefcases as pillows to try and catch 40 winks. So I was like, I guess this is what we do. I'll give it a go. So there I am, not getting any sleep. At least I had the sense to not close my eyes. But there I am, lying on the floor of JFK Airport at about, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, somewhere in that range. I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I was a teenager in a foreign country, spending my night on the airport floor of one of the biggest and most filthy airports in the world. A situation that, man, my parents were sort of, I don't know, I don't remember them being especially worried. But it was that type of situation that I found myself in pretty often. Because my parents didn't say no all that much. But there were two times when my dad kind of put his foot down. One was when, I don't do anything of this sort now, but there was a time in my late teens where I was very much into recreational narcotics, pot, ecstasy, things of that nature. I just kind of went full bore into that from the time when I was about 13 until when I was about 18, when I knocked everything on the head and haven't done anything of the sort ever since. And my father, like I said, had been pretty open about, some of the stuff he'd done when he was younger. And I think they would rather know that I'm doing this stuff and have an idea what was going on in my life rather than give me a hard time for it. But when I was around that age in my teens, I was in this band and we started to do really well. And we'd been touring all over England, But then we started to tour internationally. We started to get on planes. We started to go to America and Europe and all these foreign countries to go play shows. And my father said, hey, I see the stage of your life that you're in, and you're not really with it. You're not really together, and you are carrying drugs with you. Do you have any drugs on you now? I was like, I think I have a little pot in my back pocket. He's like, are you sure? I was like, no. He's like, well, you need to be sure about these things. And this is kind of what ended my drug taking. My father was like, hey, if you forget whether or not you've got drugs on you, and you do have drugs on you, and you get on a plane, all of this that's going on with your band, this little punk rock fantasy that you're living right now, all of that is over because you will be going to jail. It'll be over. And after that, I was like, ooh, my dad's never told me no before. I don't think I'll be doing this. And that, I think, was probably what caused me to completely knock drugs on the head. I never had a problem with it. I guess it was some youthful experimentation. But when I found out that it could kill my dreams in a very literal way, I'd had enough of it. And I think the other time my father gave me a firm no was when I mentioned it would be cool to have a road sign in my room, and maybe I would steal one from down the road, because that seemed to be what people did at my age, and it seemed like merry hijinks, super happy good times. And he was like, no, you don't. And I was like, why? He was like, because that's government property. And I was like, so? And he's like, you steal government property, it's a very big deal. He's like, you get caught stealing government property, it's a humongous deal. It's something that could mess up the rest of your life. If you're in America when you do it, it's a federal crime. Don't do it. And I was like, oh, damn. I guess I'll just go with the more traditional teenage posters and whatnot to decorate my room. So I don't know if you ever stole road signs. That was my long-winded way of telling you that I did not, as much as I thought it was a nifty thing to do when I was a kid. However, I was reading this thing in the New York Times about people. This is amazing. People, specifically potheads in Washington state. They're stealing mile 420 signs across the state along with mile 69. I know it's sophomoric, it's ridiculous, but it makes me laugh. Potheads in Washington state are stealing mile 420 signs across the state along with mile 69. So, rather cunningly, I love this idea. This is creative. This is outside the box thinking. The State Department of Transportation has a unique solution to the problem. They've simply moved the highway marker back 1/10 of a mile and tweaked the sign to say mile 419.9 or mile 68.9. Well done. See, it's that kind of creative public servant that we need more of. We could get into a big thing with this. We could spend lots of time and money and resources. We could have people arrested. We could have them thrown in jail, or we could just move the mile marker back 1/10 of a mile and, they won't be interested anymore. Problem solved. I would vote for them again.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So, yeah, like you and I were saying, potheads in Washington state are stealing mile 420 signs across the state along with mile 69. So the State Department of Transportation has a rather creative, unique solution to the problem. They've simply moved the highway marker back 1/10 of a mile and tweaked the sign to say mile 419.9 or mile 68.9. I was reading in the New York Times that the solution, says here, has not always been effective. In 2009, the state added a Kelly Green sign reading mile 68.9 to Route 231 in eastern Washington. 2 years later, somebody stole it. 3 years after that, its replacement disappeared. And in another 2 years, I guess it became like collector's editions for sign thieves. But in another 2 years, drivers were yet again deprived of knowing the midpoint between mile 68 and 70. Transportation Department employees also have the burden of explaining to people that this pattern of sign theft is not at all a laughing matter. They say that the mile markers are meant to help ambulances. This is what they're for. Not just as a reference for you and I, but the mile markers are meant to help ambulances and police locate vehicles in the event of an emergency, like a car crash. And in rural areas where your GPS doesn't work, they can be crucial in giving drivers a geographical point of reference. The Transportation Department has also tried to impress upon people that the financial burden of replacing these signs ultimately falls on the taxpayer. They say that the 0.9 mile signs are the first solution that the Transportation Department has tried. About 15 years ago, they put in a mile 69 marker using a steel post in concrete so it couldn't get stolen. But it wasn't long before someone used a car to yank the sign off the ground. Another attempt at solving the problem involved replacing the stolen signs with blank signs to mark the spot. A guy called Richard Johnson with the State Highway Patrol said he feels like it's been an annoyance for as long as they've had signs, or as long as 420 has been a thing.
Had to stop smoking weed. I smoked a joint and locked myself in the bathroom. I had a Taco Bell with M&Ms and pancake mix in it. I'm boiling down later trying to soften them up. I got so high, I went to my job and called off. I'm in the lobby. Yeah, I ain't gonna make it today. They said, why you here? I'm here? I'll call you back. How the hell I get here? I gotta leave it alone.
So, speaking of the old wacky tobacco, legalized marijuana in California, I don't know if you saw this or not, it's hit a bit of a snag. And perhaps it was because California government got greedy quickly after hearing things like this.
Here's number one. According to some politicians where I'm from in California, if California alone legalized marijuana, we would make $1 billion in tax revenue the first year alone. $1 billion. That's just in California. That's not the whole country. We'd be back on top tomorrow. If we legalized weed, we'd be back on top of the world. Ha ha, America's back. Get out of the way. That's just on tax revenue from weed. That doesn't even include weed-related products. Like ding-dongs, ho-hos, Twinkies, new Doritos, new flavors of Gatorade, new types of vitamin water, Skyline chili, Gold Star chili, shiny things, microwave burritos, Waffle House, those DVDs at the grocery store that cost $1 but you shouldn't buy, but you do because you're high. Wait a minute, man. Steven Seagal made a musical. I didn't know this. We need like 5 of these. We need like 5. No, let's get all of them, put all the food back. We're going to get all of the DVDs of Steven Seagal singing the blues. It's good times.
So that was clearly from a time when the idea of legalized marijuana was a hypothetical in California. $1 billion in tax revenue in the first year. And that, like you said, doesn't even factor in all the stuff potheads buy when they're stoned. Like ding-dongs and ho-hos and lots and lots and lots and lots of Taco Bell. But legalized marijuana in California, I don't know if you saw this or not. If you're listening in California, you might have been made aware of it. Legalized marijuana in California has imposed such large taxes on retail marijuana, nearly 50% in some communities. Oh, look, the government got greedy. Freaking surprise. The government got greedy and then ruined it for everyone? Yeah. As it turns out, these massive taxes on retail marijuana, nearly 50% in some communities, has driven pot back underground. Governor Gavin Newsom's budget reflects a drop of nearly half of what was once expected in tax revenue from marijuana sales, which has led people to go, what the hell, man? Marijuana is supposed to be the wonder drug. It was supposed to cure our aches and pains and anxiety, as well as the fiscal disaster that is California. And as it turns out, the government stuck its greedy paw in too much too soon. The Associated Press reports that industry experts say the diminished tax income reflects a somber reality. Most consumers are continuing to purchase pot in the illegal marketplace, where they avoid taxes that can near 50% in some communities. Josh Straighten of the California Cannabis Industry Association says that legal businesses need a break from hefty tax rates that are driving consumers to the illicit economy. Yeah. People went, you know what's easier? Crime. It's easier. It's cheaper. This is California. Everything costs so much freaking money. The taxes are already insane. We just legalize this and now you want to make it prohibitively expensive. I'm just going to grow this on my own, or I'm just going to score in the parking lot like I used to. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, the government sucks at doing stuff, especially in the state of California. State taxes include a 15% levy on purchases of all cannabis and cannabis products, including medical pot. Local governments are free to slap on taxes on sales and growing as well. So the state has a 15% levy, and then locally, people can add on kind of what they want to. And what they want to has been an awful lot. Which has created this really kind of bizarre, if you live in California, you might be familiar with this. It's created a really bizarre, confusing patchwork of these strange tax rates around the state. By some estimates, up to 80% of sales in the state remain under the table. So yeah, it was legal. People thought this was great. Then local government got greedy and, well, it all went to hell and people are just going, let's just continue doing this illegally. It was so much fun before. Do you think that's part of the appeal? Doing it because it's illegal? I got to tell you, I kind of quit drinking when I was about 18. And I mean, I quit doing pretty much everything when I was about 18. And a big part of the reason why I had no interest in drinking past the age of 18 is because I was living in England at the time, and 18-year-olds are legally allowed to drink there. And once it represented no rebellion, once it represented conformity, once there was no danger and intrigue involved in getting a pint of beer, I was not nearly as interested. Anyways, Governor Gavin Newsom says it's going to take some time for the new market to settle in and for them to figure things out. But they'll start coming after local government. It's like, hey, you do what government always does. You spot a revenue stream. You spot something that you can tax. And then you tax it into oblivion. Not metaphorical oblivion, literal oblivion. You tax it so heavily that people go, F this, I'm just going to do it under the table illegally. I can't afford to do it and pay the government what they're asking me to pay. And then the government that got piggy quickly goes, hold on a second. Our tax revenue is way down. Newsom, what the hell is going on with this? And Newsom, his big mistake, I say this not as a Republican or a Democrat, but as someone with common sense that wants folks like marijuana growers, people involved in the precarious profession of agriculture, to be able to reap the benefits from this being legal, even though I have no interest in smoking it or buying it. What Newsom should have done would be go, hey, you're spoiling it for everyone. Stop it. You're stupid, you're greedy, you're ruining things, not only for the consumer, but for us as a state. You were making so much money off this before, and then you got greedy, and now it's gone back underground, and now it's a big freaking mess. Government. When push comes to shove, you can always count on them to be completely and wildly inept and to cost everybody money. These are our elected officials at work. Good job. You're doing your thing. We are all proud of you. Ugh.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio. 104.1.
AD on the radio.
Alrighty then, in the time that we have left, let's you and I take a look at the events of today in our segment, My Witness News, shall we? Did you see that a 16-year-old girl in Ohio recently called 911, reported her father to the police because her father took her phone away? She claimed it was theft, but she was quickly reminded by the police that she's underage and having a phone is a privilege and not a right. Her dad said she'll get it back when her attitude improves.
911, where's your emergency?
My father took property, which is a $800 phone that doesn't belong to him. He didn't buy it.
Certainly if we were busy, it would have been something that was pushed to the back burner, but we still have an obligation to respond.
I want my phone.
I took her phone from her because she's a juvenile. Okay. I don't want her to have it. Okay. I can't inspect it.
It's my property, though, and I don't live here.
But guess what? Everything that you own belongs to your mother and your father. Having a phone is not a right.
It's a privilege.
Okay.
It's like 4 cars, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the police coming up, they look kind of tough, you know what I'm saying? There are so many hidden apps and little ways that they can hide and cover up things that they're doing on those phones that is ridiculous. When their attitude changed, then I'll give it back to them.
A woman who works at a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Jacksonville, Florida, recently got arrested for hitting a customer at the drive-thru with a box of chicken. True. The guy started recording her after she gave him his change. Then started handling food without washing her hands or putting on gloves. She didn't appreciate being recorded, and the guy says she hit him in the face with his box of chicken when she gave it to him. But it's kind of hard to tell in the video.
Now, she just got through taking our money, giving us our drinks. Now, she's fixing the food with no hairnet. Look at her hand all everywhere. And she just took our money and receipts she's been serving them. Wow.
What is your recording?
Whatever I wish. It's in America, remember? You forgot where you live? You live in the United States of America. You live in the United States of America. Recording you, fixing food with no gloves, no nothing on, just take my money.
Get your food.
Oh, so got it all on tape.
So, are people still burning their Nikes because of the whole Colin Kaepernick thing? That came and went mercifully quickly, I think. But, well, it would really be a sign of, whatever point you're trying to make by burning Nikes if you were to burn these. Did you see that Nike unveiled their new pair of self-lacing sneakers? They're called Adapt BB, and they cost $350. And you can control them with an app. Yeah, the Nike shoe designer Tinker Hatfield said that they were basically inspired by Back to the Future too, which is kind of cool. We don't have our hoverboards yet, and I'm getting the feeling that we might never have our hoverboards, as ridiculous as it seems. By the way, the way that stores, I don't even know where you get those things, but those ridiculous, they call them hoverboards, but in no way, shape, or form are they hoverboards. The way those things that people ride around on, basically a board with wheels on it that does not hover, it rolls along the ground. You've seen those, I'm sure. The way those are being called hoverboards, that I quite frankly don't think that should be allowed. But yeah, these sneakers, the self-lacing Nikes, were inspired by Back to the Future Part 2. And the guy who created them, he said he's excited to see them used in the NBA. Jason Tatum of the Celtics will wear a pair tonight against the Toronto Raptors. Nike creative director Eric Avar talked about this.
Part of my job over these years is to be a futurist and to think about new ideas and then draw them up and try and make them happen. And I think that's been a relatively successful process. We've been doing this a long time. This project wouldn't exist if I hadn't been asked to think 30 years into the future.
Power laces, all right.
Power laces sort of made sense to me, and so that's what we embarked upon.
We say power laces. That's kind of a pull back from Back to the Future shoe. But it's really about creating a new lace system, a new lace architecture, a new fit system.
I'm excited about the introduction of this new technology into the real world of sports. I mean, high performance sports in this case. We're talking about the NBA.
So did you know that there's a way you can make yourself instantly more attractive with your online dating profile? Today's Wednesday, and if you're single, you know that by Wednesday, if you're single and looking to mingle, by Wednesday, you should have any and all dates that you're hoping to go on over the weekend locked up. You don't want to be a Johnny-come-lately when it comes to asking the female of the species out for a night on the town. I think Thursday or Friday tends to be viewed with some suspicion, as it indicates that you are perhaps a backup. I'm never really sure how this sort of thing worked. I've never really done that whole traditional dating thing. I just sort of, I don't know, accidentally meet people and wind up in relationships. But whatever the case may be, if you are single, looking to mingle, and you're heading into the weekend without having the dates that you'd hoped to have lined up, the dates you feel like you deserve, well, maybe you need to soup up your online dating profile a little bit. And fortunately, experts are now saying that there's one thing that anyone can do that makes your online dating profile way more appealing. What is it? Traveling. And you know what? I can completely understand how this happens, because I did a little traveling this past weekend just gone by. I don't travel all that much, but there's been more travel in my life recently. Only because, well, I went to a friend's wedding in Mexico, and then I went to Massachusetts a little while ago. And I took some pretty pictures of the surroundings. The beaches in Mexico look awesome. Massachusetts in the wintertime, similarly awesome. And when I posted these pictures, bear in mind, I do not get this sort of attention from females online. Based on, well, who knows, but I don't. It doesn't happen. But when I posted these pictures, inevitably, there were a couple females and went, "Ooh, take me with you next time." I was like, oh man, that thing about travel, it really does make you instantly more appealing on the internet. Yeah. Experts say that you can improve your online dating profile by traveling. Unfortunately, as it turns out, traveling from the couch to the fridge and back doesn't count. Otherwise, well, I would be the internet's version of a young Brad Pitt. Oh. Did you hear how the TSA totally spaced out on the job the other day? I mean, really dropped the ball. Yeah. All the groping, all the shoe removal, all the pain, humiliation, and degradation that you and I go through at the airport in the name of security. And they missed this. What is this? A gun. A freaking gun. Did you see this? A traveler going through security at Atlanta's airport managed to board a plane to Japan with a gun, a freaking firearm. And somehow the TSA let him through. But just in case you think the TSA is not on the case, they did manage to confiscate my nail clippers and a bottle of mouthwash for me this past weekend just gone by. So there's that. Hey, if you were to go back in time 10 years or even just 5 years ago, and you told 5 years ago you that the hot button political issue of 2019 would be McDonald's straws, 5 years ago you would have told you that you were crazy. And you would have told 2013 you to buckle up, because the ride that is life is about to get bumpy. Because did you see? 2019 started off with an assault and a lawsuit caused by McDonald's straws, thanks to the Great Straw Fight of St. Petersburg. A McDonald's customer went berserk on New Year's Eve because there were no plastic straws readily available. Guy reached across the counter, grabbed the female employee, who was maybe 2/3 his size. She, in return, started pounding him with a McFlurry of fists that would have made Mike Tyson proud. The video goes viral. America was stoked, but now he's suing McDonald's. So there you have it. 2019 started off with a fist fight and a lawsuit, all caused by McDonald's straws. It's enough to make you, grimace. Hopefully, we're off to burger and better things. Let us hope so. Robble, robble. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, the time that you and I spend together, best part of my day, every single day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great night.